Excellent. So glad you're here. A little round of applause for the newbies. So, as you know, 1 Million Cups is a brainchild of the Kaufman Foundation because they have a passion for small business and entrepreneurs. So the concept is to everybody meet every Wednesday across the country, thus the 1 Million Cups, because we serve 1 million cups of coffee all across the country. So at 9 o'clock in each time zone, various chapters throughout the country will have 1 Million Cups, and it's designed for new startups and small businesses to present, not necessarily give a sales pitch, but present about their business and talk about what they are not necessarily struggling with, but looking at ways that they can grow and change their business. And it allows the business community like yourselves to be here and offer them feedback. So we're excited about that. And the important thing is in our local Joplin chapters that we've got some great sponsors that believe in that same philosophy of entrepreneurship as the Kaufman Foundation. And among those are Southwest Missouri Bank. Southwest Missouri Bank has been committed to small business for decades, and they've got a proven track record on that. So when this opportunity came up, it was, I'm sure that the marketing department and Peggy was happy to say, hey, we want to be part of that. So we want to thank them. The Joplin Public Library, Gina is back there running the equipment. Joplin Public Library eventually at some point in time physically will host 1 Million Cups. The Gina, the director, has been involved with 1 Million Cups for how many years?
A long time. I don't even know how long, but
a
yeah.
long time. As you get older, you don't want to reference numbers. I get that. So we also want to thank Granny Schaefer's for some of the most delicious coffee in the area. So they provide all of our coffee. And big thank you to Lowell, one of our organizers, who brings that big tub of coffee every Wednesday. And then we also want to thank the Missouri Technology Corporation. For those of you that may not know, the Missouri Technology Corporation has been around for decades. It is the liaison, if you will, between the General Assembly and the state budget and funding technology and business incubators and innovation. So the Missouri Technology Corporation, they provide supplemental funding for the Joseph Newman Innovation Center and things that have to do with innovation and entrepreneurship. So they are one of our sponsors as well. And of course the Joplin Area Chamber of Commerce Foundation, although this is an organic effort in the community, it is not technically part of the Joplin Area Chamber of Commerce. However, because it is so powerful toward helping small businesses, the Joplin Chamber is proud to be part of it and make this facility available. And through a grant, we were able to buy the PA equipment and so forth to support the efforts of 1 Million Cups. So, having said that, let's get started with our program. Today's program is very unique in the fact that we have one presenter with two very different subject matters that are pretty powerful and inspiring. So having said that, Skylar Wallace is our presenter. Come on up.
Thanks a lot for that. Hope the tech works. We've been trying. Awesome. So, failing in business. The topic here, I come to 1 Million Cups every single week, and obviously the goal is to promote startups. And every week I hear business owners talking about their businesses and the success they're finding. But there's this dark side of starting a business, it's failure. Most of us will fail. I'm fortunate enough to have failed 3 times now, and so I wanted to come and talk about that topic because it's something that not very many people talk about. I don't think it's something to be afraid of, and so today the goal is to really go over the 3 different businesses that I tried to start. I'm going to talk about why they didn't work out and then the lessons that I learned from the 3 of those experiences, and then we'll transition into what I'm doing now. I am still technically a business owner. We'll talk about that. Found some success now. There are some things at the end that I'll open up I could use some help with in growing and scaling what I'm currently doing. But we'll get in. So who am I? I'm from Seneca, Missouri. Originally graduated high school there. Live there now. Got my undergrad in Kansas City. I played football at William Jewell College. Got a BA in business administration there. After undergrad, I started off in finance. I worked at Wells Fargo Financial. I did mortgage loans, auto loans, credit cards. We were subprime. I did 10% mortgage loans to people, and they were happy to get them. From there, I went to Elevon, which is a subsidiary of US Bank. I did merchant services. I managed about 18 UMB Bank branches. I handled their commercial clients. I set up credit card processing, that kind of thing. Eventually, I came back home to Seneca. I moved back from Kansas City after a decade. My tribe, the Eastern Shawnee tribe, owns People's Bank of Seneca. And so I had an opportunity to come back and become vice president there in Seneca, which I thought was a neat experience. My grandmother at the time was the chairman of the board. So it was just a good opportunity to get back home. At that same time, I went into grad school. MBA programs are kind of thin in this area, especially back when I started. There were no, Southern and Pitt did not have any opportunity. It was all online. So University of Arkansas had the best MBA program I could find. It was an executive program. I wanted to get a master's, and so started there, eventually graduated, and then about 2 years ago, I moved over. I'm at Flat Branch Home Loans now, and we'll talk about that. But right about the time I started grad school was when I started my first business, Chief Pizza. The second business we'll talk about is Arthur Dent's, and then the last business we'll get into is Lindley. So these are the three different companies that I had to go at one time or another. So in 2016, well, first, obviously, like I said, I'm not afraid of failure. It happens. So most businesses will fail, but you just keep going. So Chief Pizza. This was my very first business, started in 2016 in June. We were a wood-fired pizza truck. At that time, food trucks were not nearly as popular as they are today. I think we were the second food truck in the Joplin area. We did wood-fired pizza, Show Me magazine articles, and that's my son and I cooking. We did all kinds of festivals and powwows and farmers markets and all of that. Had a ton of success. When I opened it, the problems that I was trying to solve, number one, there was not any good Neapolitan pizza options around. Now we have Carmine's. They had just started as well back at that time. There were hardly any food trucks, which I thought was odd, because even at 16, food trucks were huge nationally. Joplin did not have a lot of them at that point. Lack of native-owned businesses. So my tribe, Eastern Shawnee tribe, does not have a lot of local tribal-owned businesses. At that point, I was on our strategic planning committee. We're talking a lot tribally, how do we get more of our tribal members to open up businesses, become entrepreneurs. We started a grant. It was a $50,000 grant to tribal members to start companies. And so, kind of as a proof of concept, I decided to do that. And I took the money, and that's how I funded Chief Pizza. I named it Chief Pizza after my grandmother. She's the chief of the tribe. And then her tagline is walk in balance. That's how she ends every email and every speech she gives, walk in balance. And so eat in balance was our slogan. That's how all of that happened. And so what's our UVP, unique value proposition? Why did I think that we could open up and be different? We're native owned, so it solves that problem. We're a Neapolitan pizza. There wasn't any, and we were a food truck focused in the Joplin area. And so at that time, that was a really unique concept. We found a ton of traction doing that. We grew really fast, had a lot of success, really, really enjoyed doing it. Highly rated product, growing, had opportunities to maybe move into a brick and mortar at some point. Things were going well. And then my son, Will was diagnosed November 30th, 2016 with cancer. And so we've been open about 6 months or so. I was in grad school, I was working full time. And now we had this issue with my son, and that involved constant trips to Kansas City Children's Mercy for chemo and radiation. And we lived in a Ronald McDonald house for a month. And so it just got to the point, it was a lot of things had to go. It just, obviously this was the primary focus. Unfortunately, Chief Pizza was the one that we just could not continue on. And so luckily, Will went through, he had stage 4 cancer in his kidney and his lungs, went through chemo, radiation, and he's been in remission now for, I think, this will be 3 years this year. So he made a full recovery, he's doing great. But yeah, so that was the end of business one. And so lessons learned, what did I, through that entire experience, what did I take away? The most important thing of everything we talk about today is knowing your why. Why do you want to have that business? Why do you want to invest the time? Why do you want to deal with the no's and just the people that come at you and say it's a bad idea? In this scenario, my why was not as big as my son, and so that's the primary reason I think that failed. You should use your why to control your time. And so what I mean by that is that once you figure out why you're doing it, every opportunity that comes up, you need to ask, does this scenario relate to my why? And if it doesn't, then don't do it. And if it does, then do it. It becomes very clear once you know why you're doing something. Again, it's okay to fail if you learn. I learned a lot. One thing I really learned from Chief Pizza was branding matters a lot. I invested a lot of money, not a lot of money now, but about $2,000 when my startup cost went to branding. We had a really great logo, we had a really good brand, and it resonated really well online. I was able to grow a Facebook page really quickly because of the brand alone. And so branding really does matter. Hiring experts, I hired a professional graphic designer, went through the process, and that matters way more than, you look at the price tag of it, and you go online and there's tons of free logo creators and all kinds of ways to do it. And my experience is it is really worth hiring a professional doing it right. Branding really, really means a lot. Consistency is really, really hard, but also really important. Making pizzas out of a food truck with an active dough that's rising in 100-degree weather and 50-degree weather and 100% humidity and 40% humidity over 6 to 7 hours outside, really hard to get a consistent product. But if you're not consistent in what you're doing, you just don't have the credibility. You're going to fail faster. And then the last line there, how am I going to be an optimist about this? So that is kind of how I live my life now. When Will was diagnosed with cancer, we were at Ronald McDonald House. I was considering dropping out of college. I'd already shut down the business. Wasn't sure if I was going to even be able to keep my 40-hour-a-week job. Wasn't sure where income was going to come from. And I remember there was one time, I was just standing on the porch, just crushed, no idea what was going to happen. Decided to go to the gym. We're in Kansas City, got in the car, and Pompeii by Bastille came on. You know that song? And that's a line in that song, and I listened to it. For some reason, it resonated with me. And I just decided at that point, this is a really bad experience, but there's lots of positives I can find. And so from then on, every single time something negative happens, I always look at the positive side. What can I learn from this? How can I improve from this? And that's the first time I learned that lesson was here, but it carries with me today. And so, speed up about 1.5 years to Arthur Dent's. So this is business number 2. So I was in grad school at University of Arkansas. I had a focus in entrepreneurship. So my second year of grad school, we had to start a company. That was the project for an entire year. And so it was for educational purposes. A lot of the companies that come out of the program become very viable. A couple of them are, $100 million plus annual revenue companies now that have launched out of it. The reason they're so successful is because it's the Sam Walton School of Business. They're tied into Walmart. A lot of those businesses are ancillary businesses that support Walmart. So the growth trajectory is there if you're able to do that. For us, my business partner managed one of the largest produce departments for Walmart nationally, had a lot of connections in produce, and recognized an opportunity in tea. He was approached by some vendors that sold tea. They gave him a pitch, and he decided there was an opportunity in tea. Interesting thing about tea, it's the second most consumed beverage in the world, but in the United States it's 6th. And so it's not as popular, there's a lot of room for growth, but it has a huge market. And so Arthur Dent's was going to become the Starbucks of tea. That was our 40,000-foot view. Why can't you get tea in the same way you can get Starbucks? Why hasn't there been a tea shop that has scaled to that level that Starbucks has? And so that is really what we were trying to solve with Arthur Dent's. And so this was our presentation. We traveled around to all of the big pitch competitions that you hear about. We were in the SEC pitch competition, so all the SEC schools in the same program as us compete. In pitch competitions, we were semifinalists there. This is straight out of the presentation that we gave, and so what problems were we solving? Tea has an education gap. Operational complexity. Tea's a lot harder than coffee. Coffee, an espresso machine can make it in 30 seconds. It's just consistent, so Starbucks can consistently crank out coffee. Tea is different because every tea has to steep at different temperatures for different amounts of time. So if you are doing that at scale, how can you be consistent with that product? Most tea shops have a pretty stuffy environment. You walk in and there'll be like 1,000 teas on a wall, and maybe even like pink teacups and dishes, and it's just not that comfortable for folks. The paradox of choice, there's too many options at a tea shop. I have no idea what to pick out of that 1,000 teas. There's just too much, so I don't want anything. You freak out. And then chaotic world, everybody's stressed out all the time, so we were offering a solution to relax. There's actually a lot of relaxation in the process of making tea. Worldwide, people use it as a stress relief. So those are the things we were looking at when we formed Arthur Dent. We were fortunate enough to get access to the Beacon technology right there. That is a brewing technology that was brand new at the time. It still exists. What it does is it steeps tea in a vacuum. So what would take 15 minutes can be done in a minute inside the Beacon machine, and the quality is actually better than your standard tea. We were the first group to consider using that technology for tea. The company themselves, it's called Frankie. They manufacture every single deep fryer in every single McDonald's in the entire world. We went to their headquarters in Nashville. They were using it primarily for coffee. They never considered it. They partnered with us to launch our tea company. We were fortunate as well to get some very significant investors involved in the program. I mentioned my partner at the time was with Walmart. One of the owners of one of the largest produce companies in the entire world was our angel investor. He represented a group of folks. They called themselves Spectre. I can't necessarily talk about all of them. One owns a sandwich chain that's fast. One has a beef jerky company that has a Sasquatch in the logo. One inherited a third of the largest retail company in the entire world. These are big players that came in worth billions of dollars, and they were our angel investors. This chart shows what our unique value proposition was. We were able to consistently make quality tea fast, better than anyone else in the industry. And so things were going great. We had an angel fund. We raised $600,000. Then had a second investor wanting to come in for another $600,000. We were going to open our first shop down in Arkansas, in Bentonville, in a retail space. And then this business turned sideways for completely different reasons. Can't talk about a lot of it, but when we had the investment come in, we had a cap table ownership stake in our minds, but we were, for the purposes of the class, told not to create a cap table because we were an educational experiment. And so we didn't have anything in writing, we didn't have any legal documents formalized. The understanding was we were thirds, or three of us. When the money came in, my partner that had the relationship with the business owner came to us and presented the proposal, hey, we have $600,000. I'm gonna take 40%, he's gonna take 30%, and you each get 5%. I was like, that doesn't sound like a very good deal. I have another investor that I had reached out to that had $600,000. I said, he just wants a fourth, and we can all have a fourth. And my partner said, no, you don't understand, we're doing this. And so Arthur Dent's didn't have any proprietary technology, we didn't have any, anything unique. And so he said, if you want to start a tea shop, go ahead, but we're taking this one. And so that just kind of dissolved. I didn't want to go into business with somebody like that. And so it just kind of stopped there. And that was really the end of it. I let him have it. He didn't end up pursuing it. It went back on the shelf. So there's an opportunity there, but the business died. So what did I learn from all of that experience? Operating agreements and cap tables matter. So first thing you should do if you go into business with somebody is put on paper the ownership split, how it's going to work, go through the entire operating agreement, lay everything out. That's the most important thing you can do. We did not do that under the advice of our teacher, and here we are. Clarity of vision is very important. So what that means is, I tell you I want to open a tea shop. Sounds crazy, and everyone would look at us like we were crazy. But once you dig in and show the vision of why it's going to work, people start getting behind the idea because it is unique. And so being able to convey the vision of what you're doing is really important. What makes you unique? Why are you going to do it? Learn from every no. I pitched a lot of venture capitalists and a lot of angel investors. For both this business and the next one, I've gotten told no hundreds and hundreds of times by people pitching ideas, just like Shark Tank, exact same scenarios that you see on TV. But it's very important every time you get told no, ask why and learn from it, and just improve constantly your model and your pitch and get better. Always be pitching. I had a $600,000 offer from a doctor I met at a coffee shop up here that just happened to own a chain of coffee shops in the Middle East. Just because we were in a coffee shop and I mentioned my idea to him. So it's important if you're trying to raise money, always be pitching, you never know. IP, intellectual property, we had none. We had a partnership with a company that had a cool brewing machine, but it wasn't exclusive. We didn't have our own tea. We had nothing about the idea other than the name Arthur Dent, which, anybody get the reference? A couple of people, yeah. So, it's a sci-fi reference, so to a pretty cool book. But that's the only thing we had, and it didn't matter. We still had tons of investors who were interested. So while intellectual property is important, and if you have some, you have patents and trademarks and things, that's fantastic, but you shouldn't let that be the reason that you don't go into business. Willing to work hard and commit matters more than having IP. So if you have an idea that anybody could knock off, that's fine, but hardly anybody has the energy to actually do it. So if you're willing to commit to it, that's what makes you different. It's not the fact that you have IP. It's the fact that you have the drive and your why aligns to do it. And then again, this sucked, but had potentially unlimited capital to scale. Could have been the next, franchise tea shop in the country. Didn't work out. So, I learned a lot. It was a really good opportunity. Right after that, I did something crazy. I was really upset about the whole thing dying. Wanted to have a business desperately at that point. I failed twice. And so I signed up for Startup Bus. Has anybody heard of Startup Bus? This is a crazy thing. So you get on a bus. The year I did it, I was on the Detroit bus. There's 10 buses. Everybody gets on a bus at the same time for 3 days. You travel the country. You pair up and you launch businesses on the bus. Everybody meets in New Orleans. It's a pitch competition for $250,000 of startup funds. It takes place over 3 days. So I jumped on a bus in Detroit. I knew no one. I just knew I wanted to have a company. And so that's us on the bus. That's my founding team. Met those guys on the bus. It was actually my idea that we ended up running with, and that's how the next company came. So Lindley. This is the first time I started a company that related directly to what I do professionally. I've been a lender for a long time, and at the time I was at People's Bank of Seneca, and the trend I noticed was like 50% of people that applied for a mortgage were turned down. They just didn't have the credit, or their budget was screwed up. They just didn't qualify, and I didn't have the time to really help them because we're super busy as a bank. You're constantly dealing with people coming in. And so what Lindley was going to be, it was going to solve two problems, both for the bank. On the banking side, we would educate their turned down clients as to what they need to do to get approved. We would turn unqualified walk-ins into qualified candidates. Then we would refer them back and improve their closing ratios on all the applications. The hardest part of a bank is the marketing to get somebody in the door. It's really frustrating when half of those people leave and you don't sell them on a mortgage loan. So the idea was that we would help conversion there by using some automated software that would fix credit, talk about budgets, help them save, and turn all of those turndowns into buyers. Anybody want to be motivated? But the secret was that it was all going to be done automatically online through computer software. So we would be infinitely scalable at that point. For the home buyer, we offer education. They don't have financial education. They have a fear of getting turned down. They don't know how to get qualified. I keep getting turned down. I don't know why. So we were a solution there, kind of like Credit Karma in a way, but more. And so, education first. We were writing software that could automatically fix credit, put them on a plan, build out a credit action plan for them, all automatically based upon their credit reports and their income. And so we ended up not winning Startup Bus, but we were a semifinalist. Got some interesting offers from a few venture capital firms that we met there, and started working on Lindley. The problem was we were pre-revenue, and building the software was really expensive and took way longer than what we thought it was going to take, and just didn't have the money. I couldn't raise money because for this particular company, everybody wanted to see revenue. What's your traction? What are you doing? How many clients do you have? We didn't have any yet because we didn't have the software, and so we ended up basically just failing due to lack of funds. Things I learned there, MVPs, so minimum viable product. If you're going to start a company, you should build, the easiest, fastest way to market, the minimum viable product to get it out there. We were failures at doing that because the software was just too hard to build. We should have started with just me doing it because it's what I do for a living anyway. So looking back, we should have just started taking in applicants and just letting me fix them manually until the software got there. Raising pre-revenue is hard. If anybody's raising money, if you're not at revenue yet, it's really hard to get investors to see value in their returns. Tech development, if you get into that world, will always cost more, will always take longer. Just be aware it's like construction. It just always goes over. But niche business models are fantastic. This was really niche, but the potential was huge. I mean, it could have been a $100 million company. There's plenty of opportunity. There's a lot of banks, there's a lot of mortgage loans that happen. A lot of people get turned down every single year. Burn the ships. This is one of the bigger things. So at the time I was working a full-time job. So when Cortez came to Mexico, discovered Mexico, ultimately took over the Aztec Empire, one of the first things he did was he burned the ships. He had a lot of crew members that wanted to go back home. They were not committed to the mission. And so the only way he could get them committed was to basically say, this is the only way. He burned the ships and took that out of the equation. I did not quit my job. I tried to do Lindley on the side. So I had an out. I had an escape, and I took it. It became too hard. I got told no. Had I quit that job, cut off all possible exits other than to proceed, I probably would have started selling, cold calling on banks, and just started building that business on my own without the software. But I didn't, and ultimately it didn't fail, or it did fail. So I was the visionary founder there. It was my idea. Had I pressed on, the other guys would have. They would have continued on as well, but ultimately it was just too difficult and took up too much time. But again, I learned a lot. It was a really good experience. So got to talk to a lot of VCs and angel investors and learned a lot about pitching and how to do that. And it's a really cool skill set to have. So it was overall a positive experience. I could always bring it back too. Nothing says I can't develop the software later on. So, but that is really the end of the first part. So those are the 3 failures. If anybody has any questions about that, I can pause for a second.
Yeah, and I would just ask, because we're operating on one microphone, if you have a question or you have a story about a failed business or a good comeback story, just speak up a little bit. And if they do have a question, just repeat the question so it shows up on the video.
Kind of what we talked about before, were any of these passion projects, or was this like, I have a skill set, I'm gonna apply, like, was pizza your passion, was tea your passion?
Yeah, so passion projects, were any of these passions? So pizza was. I love culinary, I love to cook, love wood-fired pizza. I got into grilled pizza first, and then found a pizza oven, got real into that, started making dough, learning about fermentation of dough and all that. And that was very much a passion project, even to the name. I mean, cheap pizza, my grandmother is a very inspiring lady, one of my role models. The whole thing was a passion project, and that was tough when that one died, but it is what it is.
I was gonna follow up with this, did you miss it? And that's probably like, yes. Is there still that energy to do something like that again?
There is. It's having a food truck's a lot of work. Especially a pizza food truck. Managing that dough outside is tough. We didn't have an enclosed temperature controlled trailer. Would have made it a lot easier with refrigeration. But yeah, I miss it. I'll probably come back to it. Probably a brick and mortar on our farm at some point, 10, 15 years out is in the long-term plan. So.
I was just gonna ask you if you consider going back to the food truck. What I think would be great in Joplin, I came from Dallas, and Dallas had a big food truck park. And there's quite a few food trucks now that I see roaming around, and I think that would be something that would be good for Joplin.
Yeah, so food truck park in Joplin, I agree. Economic developers and chamber members should look at that.
Duly noted.
Yeah, I think it would be great too. There's some pretty good Neapolitan pizza around now. Carmine's does a great job. They have a good product. They're really connected nationally to the pizza scene with the industry insiders, that kind of thing. I don't know if I would get back. Have a little bit different concept. Not a food truck for sure, but yeah, I mean, I do miss it. I still have the oven. I still make pizza all the time.
Excellent presentation.
Yeah.
Pearls of wisdom.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I have an off-the-wall question for you. The thing that stuck out to me, your instructor that told you that there was no need to get documents in writing. Have you gone back to that instructor and had a dialogue with them?
Yeah, honestly, we almost dropped out of the class over it. It was a really bad experience. It went really poorly, and we had to finish. We actually, the program is based in Arkansas. We had to present to the Arkansas Board of Regents, or somebody down in Little Rock was the capstone project, and had to present our pitch after all of that had happened. So trying to pretend with the business partner that stabbed you in the back to get a grade because it's ultimately a class was a terrible experience. But we got through it. We did it. The tea was never a passion at all, but the opportunity was really great. The technology we had, it had a lot of potential to do. It just, maybe I still think about it.
Yeah.
I guess part of that question is, you said it has a lot of potential, right? I think sometimes people, as entrepreneurs, we look at more of the potential than the reality of the numbers or the situation. At what point do you need to make that decision where the potential versus the viability of it is going to take traction for success?
Yeah, potential versus viability. We had that come up. I mean, we all were professionals. One of my partners is a senior vice president for a national construction development company. He was in the mix because he was going to be selecting out locations. That's what he did for a living. And so the other managed, one of the largest produce lines nationally for Walmart, had a huge job. I was vice president of People's Bank Syndicate. But we said, eventually we're gonna have to run a tea shop. And so that was always like, that's gonna be really an interesting thing. People are gonna think we're insane when we leave our jobs to open a tea shop. But yeah, that was really what it came down to, is the amount of work and the amount of capital to scale. We looked at franchising, we looked at remaining corporate, and there's a lot of capital required. And so you're right, the potential versus the amount of effort to get there, added on top of the dynamic relationship we had at that point, was really what killed that.
Sorry, to follow up with the person that stabbed you in the back. Did you have any indication that something like that was gonna happen with that person? Or was that just a complete shock out of nowhere?
Did I know I would get stabbed in the back? So we had an agreement on an ownership stake we thought was fair. We started from day one saying we didn't want to argue about that because we didn't really have anything. I mean, we had an idea. And then when it happened, it was just weird because the same day I had gotten the same offer of money from a different person with a fair equity stake. And to me, it made more sense, and it wasn't an option. It was just, well, I'm doing this, which I understand because you have a lot of capital backing that offer. More money than I could ever imagine coming from that side. It was just unfortunate the way that it ended the way it did. Yeah, I didn't expect it. But.
So on the Lendley side, you and I have had coffee, had conversations about finances and education and the lack of what's there. Have you thought about circling back and finding tech teams or stuff like that to start working on software that helps? Because I know, like, for us as a larger company, we're always looking at ways to be able to bring more value to, especially middle-income families, so they have more tools to be able to get their credit taken care of, being able to qualify better for lending.
Sure. So should I bring Lindley back? It was an interesting thing that happened there. I was on the Detroit bus. So in Detroit, that is the home of Quicken.
Quicken, yep.
So one of the mentors on my bus was a Quicken employee who was a developer, and he kept telling me, he's like, I have NDAs and non-competes, and I cannot help you. I'm developing this exact thing internally in Quicken. And so Quicken has this exact thing, but it's only for Quicken.
Right, if,
And
that's one of our partners.
Yep.
And so if somebody doesn't qualify, we have a program that's.
So that's exactly what and that happened, just a weird coincidence. We ended up pitching, I forget his name, Quicken's owner, his venture capital firm in Detroit, and his business partner sat in on it. He's like, we have this exact thing. So it was an interesting thing. I mean, it should exist. Credit Karma doesn't do a good enough job. There's too many quirks in the industry, mortgage related, that software could figure out. However, if it gets too good, then you put a loan officer out of a job. So, I don't know. Yeah, that's what, yeah. I mean, Quicken is getting there, so.
Okay, one last question.
Yeah, it's not really a question, but a statement based on that. I mean, I love what, because that's kind of my background. My background's economics, finance, and banking. But on that, there is some companies, Lincred actually in Bentonville, Arkansas, has a program similar to that. It's called BOSS, and they do that. They roll through that, establish business credit and, clean up things. It's all into one package. So they're looking at it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's, our niche was.
They're doing it, yeah.
Yeah, the initial niche was focused on community banking.
Yeah.
Because I know they're understaffed, and I know they don't have the funding to do it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so what's next? So to get caught up here to the next point, Lindley died, worked at the bank for about another year. A guy by the name of Sam Hickey, I'm sure some people in the room know Sam. Sam, his wife Rhonda Hickey, she's a big mortgage lender at Flat Branch Home Loans. They're my neighbors. Sam at one time was my credit card processing representative. When I was at People's Bank, I would refer my commercial clients to him. He ended up recruiting me to come over to Flat Branch. Left the bank, wasn't 100% certain what we were gonna do. He just knew he liked me, I liked him. We tend to raise each other's mindsets, and just we had a lot of good conversations, saw some opportunity there. So I ended up, it's been 2 years now, I made a move over to Flat Branch, which was really an interesting decision that my grandmother was not thrilled with, but it was fine. And so now I run a team. Sam and I founded a team called the Level Up Lenders. We actually have our 5th loan officer. She's taking her test tomorrow. And so we officially have been around coming up, it'll be 2 years in January, so about a year and a half that our team has existed. When I came on and partnered with Sam, it was June of 2019. That year we did 121 loans, which is pretty good. Average loan officer does about 5 loans a month, so it's reasonable. And then in 2020, we saw 337% growth. We ended up closing 408 loans year over year. We grew from Sam and I to now we have 9 full-time employees on our team. We've got 5 lenders, 4 support staff, and then all kinds of other folks that help carry our team. Currently, we have started the process of adopting the book Traction. It's a book by Gino Wickman. It's a framework of how to run a business, small to scale. And so the next step in our process, what we're working on right now, is scaling regionally and then nationally our team. As lenders, we're going to start recruiting lenders in other markets to continue to grow and scale. What we're doing, there's only so many loans you can have in Joplin. Unfortunately, Sam's married to the best mortgage lender in the state of Missouri, so we have to go elsewhere to find some of our business, but that's fine. We will. And so Traction, what my experience has been, it focuses on 6 key cores of your business. So your vision is the most important piece of that. I've talked about it before. Knowing who you are as a company, where you're going, and then clearly demonstrating where you're going to both your employees and your customers. Very, very important that everybody involved knows where you're headed. Data teaches you all of your KPIs, key performance indicators, monitoring everything you need to know. Know your numbers really well. Everybody has a number. Everybody in your entire company has one number that we can look at any given point, determine how well they're doing. That's a key concept of traction. Your process, documenting your process, making it clear exactly how things work, that is crucial for us in mortgage. You know, there's 30 or 40 different people involved in a mortgage loan from start to finish, and that process is just crazy. So getting that ironed out and how that works when you're running a loan through all of those people and make sure that it happens smoothly has been big. The people themselves, you know, it's having everybody in the right seat and the right bus is a big piece. And then issues, every single week we have meetings, we talk about what's going wrong, what's going poorly, what part of the process should be fixed, what have you noticed, and so you're always improving, always fixing issues and getting better to then find traction. So that's our picture of our traction meeting that we just had. We have one once a month to go through the big picture, and then we meet weekly to talk about daily operational issues that we're having. And so just an example, core values is something that we just out of the meeting have formed. And so this will carry over to all of our branding and marketing, and everything that we do, including hiring and firing, is all geared around these 5 core values for who we are. And so if you're looking to scale, Traction is a really good resource. And so what problems are we having now? Number one goal is right now about 80% of business is referral-based, realtor partners. We've got hundreds of realtor partners all over the Midwest that refer business to us. Want to transition to 80% self-sourced. The problem with realtor partners is that there's no lever you can pull to get more referrals. You just hope that they call and send you more, or you can go out and make more realtor partners, but it's not reliable. So transitioning to 80% self-sourced via marketing, social media, being able to throw dollars at something and predictably know what we're going to get back in return. Creating a more robust online marketing strategy. How do we go after and find leads? Hire, train, and implement the Level Up Lender process more efficiently as we continue to grow. How do you continue to train that process to folks and make sure everybody understands what we're doing? Ensuring quality of service, so comes back to consistency, all the way back to cheap pizza. That's the same thing. You have to have a good product for every single client, every single time, because one bad review can kill you. One bad experience with a good realtor partner, and that whole channel can be gone. And then conveying values clearly to the masses. So talks about vision. How do we, continue to clearly define who we are as a team, where we're going, what sets us apart, why people should do business with us. So if anybody has any thoughts on any of that, I'd love to field some questions on that.
How are you doing the hiring, training, implementing the Level Up Lender process? How have you started to look at more efficiently? Because in Traction, we talked about processes, right? And really writing down every single process that you have in each step. And so, one, have you done that where you've done that right after every process? And then how are you finding consistently to implement that, or what have you started on so far?
Yeah, so what are we doing now for teaching our process to new hires? It's hard because in mortgage, there's so many different loan types that we do. So the way we started off is we took one of our assistants and we basically said, over the course of like 3 months, we want you to write down every single thing that you do in a day. And so she literally spent like 3 months just writing down, I went on the USDA website and I ran GUS. I pulled credit. I sent off for a rescore to a credit company. I had to contact the bank to get a new bank statement, like just all these things. And so then we created a checklist of those things. And now when a new hire comes on, we have a Trello board that they go through. And the goal is that they show mastery of every one of those things. The problem is there's so many things. Like something will come up once a year, but then it'll come up 4 times in a row randomly. Because there's just so many different weird quirks and scenarios. So that's one thing we struggle is how do you cover everything? And if you don't, then how do you build in a checks and balances when something comes up?
So the reason why I said that is like when I worked for Starbucks and trained, we knew that a new barista coming in, it'd take about 6 months for them to get competent. Now I know mortgage and coffee are 2 different things, but 6 months to get competent in every station to do coffee, I could imagine that run up for that is saying, okay, hey, what are we key performance indicators that we're going to hold a standard to this, so that way we know we have good traction with people that we're hiring.
Yeah, and that's been tough, because then it comes back to time. I mean, we're closing, 400 or 500 loans a year. It's a lot of loans, and it takes a lot of time to do, in addition to then trying to work on the business instead of just being stuck in it. So, yeah, it's a battle, and we struggle with it, but.
I think one of the things that I've seen, I've known Sam for several years, and seeing your team do is really hire really quality people that are, I think, looking at those people that already set their standards high, and people that you've gotten in the industry that you're in, over to, that kind of know part of it, but then to just step them up to the level of work that you guys work at is pretty amazing.
Yeah, hiring well, and that's the difference for what we're trying to do, is that we have it now. We're just refining it, but we built a back-end support system where I can take a guy that sells cars, and in a month I can turn him into a mortgage lender. And he doesn't need to know how to do mortgage loans. He just needs to know how to be relationship based. And then we have a back office that can slam that loan through no problem. So when we scale, the reason why we built that was because it makes it easier to scale. Flat Branch as a company does a really good job recruiting loan officers from other companies. We don't want to grow that way because corporate's already doing that. We want to find good people that are good salesmen, relationship experts that then we can bring in and turn them into good mortgage lenders. So that's something that we're working on, but that's a little bit of a different approach that we're taking.
What's your top 3 or 4 markets that you're trying to get into?
Probably for sure Nashville. Been doing a little bit there already. Dallas. Maybe up in Minnesota. We're licensed up that way. And then we've looked at Atlanta for a long time. Been doing some loans over there. Kind of a weird city from a mortgage perspective, but Nashville and Dallas for sure are what we're looking right now.
Okay.
So,
Well, I have some connections to go to Nashville and that might be worthwhile. When you talk about transition lead generation from 80% referral to 80% self-source, you talk about just the realtor partnerships to the referral side. Are you trying to take it so that way those relationship experts are out doing more of their own prospecting and self-source in that way, or are you talking more just lead generation through online systems?
The real goal is to get ahead of the realtor.
Yeah.
So we want to get the lead and then decide where those clients go back. But the problem with realtors, like I said, is that you don't control them. Legally, I can't make a realtor send me a deal, and then wouldn't try and do that anyway. It's all relationship based, but and then you can build a great business that way. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just what we're trying to do is scale. We go into Nashville, we don't have any realtors.
Right.
But if I know a marketing campaign that can work on Facebook, I can do that anywhere, and then I can reasonably predict. We're going to come in. We're going to have a budget of $100 a week. That's going to generate this many leads. This is how we're going to work them. And I can get a reasonable prediction. It's a lot harder to do that to say, I'm going to go in and I'm going to meet with 50 realtors a week, and I'm going to build up a referral base that way. That's how I built my business. I did cold calling. I cold called 100 realtors a week for about 6 months. And it's just unpredictable. It worked. I have a book of business now, but it's just unpredictable.
Sure.
So regarding conveying your values clearly to the masses, I think you just need to consider what do those words mean to the masses. So your number one core value is tenacity. As a first-time homeowner, I'm not totally sure I want to deal with a mortgage lender that is tenacious because I don't know if that's good for me.
Right, salesy
because
yeah.
Is your tenacity just getting me or getting to sell me a loan no matter what? Or is your tenacity finding me the best deal that works for me to get me to my goal? So maybe think about the wording. Okay.
Yeah, what's the best way to convey the message? You know what I mean? We thought about we make a video explaining each one of our core values and then what they mean, or put out some Facebook literature, website postings. What's the best way to do that?
what's your vision and your mission first, I think, like, what's your vision and then the mission of that? I think that's what people identify with
Right.
first.
So the vision for us is we allow anyone to become a homeowner, is really the goal. And so, not every lender does, not every bank does. I mean, I talked about it with Lindley, I've experienced it. A lot of people that aren't qualified, you just don't have time.
Right,
So,
but why? Like, why do you want to allow everyone to get a homeowner? So you can get a sale and make money off of that? Or
Yeah, sure.
so that you can empower
Yeah.
those people? Like that's the messaging is like, we want
yeah,
you to focus on your goals. So like, focus on what you're doing for them, not just like, yeah, I'm getting a sale, I'm tenacious. Like.
yeah, sure, yeah.
Yeah, I think it is important for sure for your values to follow that mission and vision statement, right? So it sounds like your mission is what, to put all people in a reasonable home, and
Yeah,
you guys
sure.
have that, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big believer in the power of real estate. Sam and I both are real estate investors, and so I think bringing that into the brand more is a good idea, but we do, free, completely free, real estate investing 101 classes all the time. We have one coming up next week if you're interested. And so that's the goal, is to just teach people financial freedom through real estate. A lot of people that might just be owning their primary residence, but there are a lot of people, that's the wealth. I mean, that's the only way they'll really generate true wealth, is by owning that home. 401k, maybe, but at the least they're paying rent, whether they're putting money into a 401k or not, they're paying for housing. So why not own a home and at least create some generational wealth?
It's two different systems though.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think-
Do it under the same umbrella.
Yeah.
I think maybe something like what these two are saying, so I send people from my program, my nonprofit, to Flat Branch for the very specific reason that they have someone in there that goes over their credit with them and then walks them through the entire process. Give me all of this and I will show you what I can remove off of your
Right.
credit. And there's not any other place here in town that does that, so maybe letting people know that you have that program, because we didn't know before I had contacted somebody at your office to come and speak at my program. So now I have like 6 people that are going there and paying for this that will eventually become, people that you lend mortgage to.
Right. To clarify, not paying Flat Branch. We don't charge for a credit repair.
Right.
But we partner with a credit repair company that they have their own thing. But yeah, we do all in-house credit repair. There's a girl on our team named Stevie. That's her whole job, is what she does. So, yeah.
So Skylar, tell me how, when you say that you can take a person and make them a mortgage lender in, what did you say, a month? A relationship builder and
Right.
turn them into a mortgage lender. How do you deal with all the knowledge that they need about regulations? I mean, we're the most heavily regulated industry under healthcare, and it changes every day, as you know. And our lenders have trouble keeping up.
Yeah, I mean,
sometimes.
we have the licensing process. We're not a federal bank. So we have to get state licenses, we have to pass the test. So we don't send any lenders free until they're licensed. And so that covers a lot. I mean, that's a hard test. And so that at least gives you exposure to everything you shouldn't do and why you shouldn't do them. And so we have a pretty serious compliance department as well that I don't like getting emails from. So.
Yeah, we don't have.
That's one thing that I think that that's what I know about Flat Branch, is that if I am talking to someone that has credit, doesn't have credit, or has credit problems but wants to buy a house, I know that if I send them to you, you may say no, you maybe don't say no, but not yet, like, here's how we'll get there. And so I have a cousin, same thing, she didn't have terrible credit, sent the same, like, it was a year and a half later, but they own their home now, it was a process they went through. So I think that
Basically, using our core values relating to the process, and then our mission of what we're doing, and the process is different and unique from what most
So
most
telling
people
that
do.
story of how you can help someone, how they get there,
Yeah.
I think is probably pretty powerful.
All right, Well, if there's no more questions, round of applause for Skylar. That was excellent.
Can I meet with you after?
Yep. That's called Coffee and Connections. How about that? So we want to do some giveaways. Again, whoever's here first for the first time, raise your hand again. How many did we have? 1, 2, 3, 4. You all get a mug. Sorry, I thought I was gonna say you get a car, you get a car, you get a car. But you could get a 1 million cups mug. So we're gonna bring those out. There's 2 of them right here. We'll just grab those. Who's the first one? There you go. Let me give you one. Kavanaugh, so good to see you here. Yeah. It's good to see people on social media. All right, and who else? Was there somebody else back here? Yeah, 2 more.
I will get you one in a minute.
Yeah, we've got 2 more mugs. We'll bring those out to you, okay? Because we're recording, we're double dipping on stuff. So anyway, Lowell's got them, yeah. Do you want a regular coffee mug or the thermos one?
I'll
You're-
take that one.
Excellent.
We have plenty of both kinds, so.
Which one do you want?
I'm happy to receive whichever you.
Yeah, man, I tell you what, that's the attitude, isn't it? Attitude of gratitude. Well, I want to thank you all for being here today. It was a great program. Again, thank you to our sponsors, Southwest Missouri Bank, Missouri Technology Center, Joplin Public Library, Granny Shapers, and the Joplin Area Chamber of Commerce Foundation. Next week, I don't know who our speaker is. Gina?
Shelly is gonna be our speaker next week.
Shelley,
Yeah,
we're so excited about that. I'm glad you signed up. So we will be here next week. Coffee and Connection starts at 8:30, program at 9, and we hope to see you then. Thank you all for showing up. Bye-bye.